So let's bring in here the former president of the Business Council of Australia. He's hired a few people in his time, Tony Shepherd. Tony, many thanks for your time.
Ross, it's a pleasure to be with you again.
All right, so you could argue this is two old dinosaurs, two old white blokes talking about diversity and gender equity. This might not be the right place.
Well, the ageism is growing, no?
Well, that's right. That is true. That's a good point. So I just want to go here. Is this simply, in your opinion, gone too far? Or is Donald Trump onto something here, do you sense?
I think Donald is onto something here. We're similar countries, as you know, the United States and Australia, but we're quite different in many respects. So they invented all of that wokeism stuff.
Yeah.
And now he's stepping back from it, and it's proving extremely popular in the US, and that's one of the reasons he was elected. He got 58% of the vote, which in the US is high. And that is starting to resonate in Australia. And Australian business is starting to say, well, look, our primary goal is to look after our shareholders.
Yeah.
What a novel concept. And we can't look after every single other social issue in Australia. Now, we pride ourselves on our diversity and opportunity. This is the country that's taken hundreds of thousands of refugees from war-torn countries, offered them a new life, offered them a future in a safe environment and what have you.
In fact, you could argue in Australia here, a land of great migration, that many of our wealthiest people, many of our biggest businesses have been created by migrants. So Australia has been inclusive when it comes to migration. 5 million people have come in over the past 3 years, for example.
Look, I'm a child of the Second World War. This country grew because of immigration. We would be nothing, we'd still be a rural economy if it were not for immigration. It has been a phenomenal contribution to our social and economic life. And certainly our food's improved dramatically as well.
Well, that's right. So, OK, but there's another aspect of this when we talk about diversity and equity inclusion. That is about females in the workplace.
Yes.
Now, the one thing I would say is noting that there is more than 50% of graduates from our universities right now are females.
Yes.
You don't want to waste those brains. No. You want to use every one of those brains as best as you can.
Yeah, you do. We're short of people. I think what business is swinging away for is this firm quotas.
Right. Okay.
Because
so
what happens with a quota is it's demeaning to the women. And I've appointed and worked with numerous outstanding business and public servant women who I would promote and reward without even thinking about, and I have done that in many cases. But if you start putting them into that role because you have to get your numbers, that's insulting to women. They can, in modern Australia, in modern companies and in the public service, they'll get the jobs that they deserve, and that's better for them and better for society. And I think there is a swing back to that in Australia now.
All right, so do you get a sense ever, in your experience, that there has ever been any tokenism in boardrooms or in public service?
I think it happens on boards and it happens in companies and it happens in public sector at times. I think there has been some tokenism.
So does that mean that there is discrimination against men in the workplace?
Well, there would be. It's discrimination against men, for sure. But it is actually demeaning, in my view, to the women whom we're producing are outstanding, And I look at my own daughters and my great-granddaughters, and they are outstanding. I mean, they're hard-working, highly intelligent, by the way, quite tough at times, but they get the job done, and they have all been promoted in reward for their ability and their contribution to the outfits they work for.
So there's one aspect I want to also raise with you, and that is when it comes to women in the workforce. The participation rate of women in our Australian workforce is right now at the highest it's ever been. Now, that's through necessity of families needing to actually pay very expensive mortgages in capital cities. But it comes back to the skills that women have developed and been encouraged to develop by employers, again, to keep their brains and skills in businesses, even when they've had kids.
Well, look, it's certainly the economic pressure that keeps them working, and that's the same in the United States particularly. But it's also because the opportunities are now there, and they're good at their job, and childcare helps them a lot, you know, and they can do that. They can do the two, but they're hardworking. See, and the average Australian family now, and that the middle group, which actually is the ones that are the majority group in Australia, unlike America, where the elites and you've got the very poor and not too many in the middle. But the average Australian is hard-working, mum and dad, 2 kids, both the mum and dad are working. In some cases, mum's making a lot more money than dad.
Yeah.
And that's great, and that's a reward for their excellence. But they're still very strong families with a strong focus on their children and their health, welfare and education.
Okay, so let's say, for example, we have got the Sex Discrimination Act. You've got, quite clearly, you've got laws in this country that prevent discrimination in the workplace.
And I think that is fantastic, and that's true to our values.
So we don't So we don't need to unwind those laws.
No, we just need how we implement them without being silly, and give. Just go back to the Australian basic philosophy, which probably comes from our Christianity background. Give everybody a fair go. A fair go is the Australian call sign, and that is a fair go for everybody.
All right, so
male, female, immigrant, not whatever, their diversity, what have you. The only discrimination I'm getting at the moment is ageism.
Ageism, all right. It's okay, right. We all get that a bit. But anyway, so the one thing I would say is that given that Donald Trump is there and has unwound clearly what many seem to be excesses in that US system, do you sense that even here in the boardroom there may be a similar change in mood?
I think I can sense a movement already.
Right.
I can sense.
And is that about the reporting of it, or is it about the implementation?
But it's everything. It's reporting and implementation. You know, because you can be spending so much time on that, and putting in people that aren't really qualified for the job, out of that passion for diversification, but that may be to the disadvantage of the company in terms of its productivity and output. But in terms of women, as I've said, and I can quote some of them now, but they're just outstanding, and they've got there as CEOs or chairs or what have you through their excellence.
Yeah.
And they're doing a fabulous job.
All right, then they used to talk about the Old Boys Network, right? The Old Boys Network used to be the group of directors that be on 6, 7, 8 boards or whatever it might be. But there's another aspect of this, it seems, is in this day and age when computer hacking is massive, when artificial intelligence is massive, it seems to me that if there's a need for some sort of diversity on boards, it's to get away from the old idea that your board is going to be chock-a-block full of accountants and lawyers.
Yeah, and yes, I agree. And one of the things that worries me about our boards is the lack of experience in engineering, science, and in things like construction and development. With this total focus on law and accounting. And I think we need diversity in that area too, in terms of the skills of boards. How often do you look at some of those public company boards and you say, how many on that board actually understands the business that they're now a director of?
Pretty often, I'd say, Tony.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty true, isn't it?
It is.
You've been on a few boards, haven't you?
I have been on a lot. But I always try and look, I'm no genius, so I always surround myself with outstanding people who know more than me.
And maybe that is the bottom line. Tony Shepherd, it is always lovely to chat to you, and many thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.
There you go. Tony Shepherd there